Welcome to the NJIT Library tutorial on intellectual property in the digital age. By the end of this tutorial, you should be able to define the terms intellectual property and copyright, understand your rights as a creator, understand copying another words' ideas is plagiarism if credit is not given to the creator, and be aware of the seriousness of plagiarism and academic dishonesty offenses as listed in the University Code on Academic Integrity. The World Intellectual Property Organization states that intellectual property refers to creations of the mind, which can be inventions, patents, trademarks, literature, works, symbols, names, etc. When you research a topic, you may use information from articles, books, or the web to support your ideas, but you must credit the original authors of these sources by citing them. To cite means you state where you found the item so that you and others can find the exact items again. In this way, we build upon the ideas and knowledge of other people. While anyone can be an author on the internet, having authority is no longer a prerequisite for content provision. But that still means you have to give credit to authors who do not state they have copyright or don't have a publisher, such as a book or magazine or journal. All creators have rights. So understand your own rights and those of others. Do you have pics on Facebook? How would you feel if you found your picture stolen and used for advertising? Or if you wrote a note and it was stolen by a friend, submitted to her professor, and the professor thought it was brilliant and the student won money? So understand your own rights as creators. Consider a Creative Commons license on your Facebook. Here's mine. It states that you can use my stuff if you attribute me, but you can't make money off of it or make derivatives. Pay attention to your privacy settings. This is a funny story where this guy called out sick from work, made it look like a family emergency, and the next day his boss saw this tagged on Facebook. You can control what gets posted, who can see what, and who can search for you on Facebook, and you can find your Facebook by searching Google. What is copyright? Well, copyright is a legal device that protects the creator, gives creators the right to control how their works are used. Now, the intent is really just to give creators, authors, an economic incentive to keep on creating. These legal rights control everything from images to sound files, and even whether or not you can photocopy. Most information is protected by copyright, but there is an exception. These are works in the public domain. Now, these can be reproduced by anyone or used by anyone without permission. Examples are government publications, works where the author has waived the copyright, like freeware, or older works where copyright has expired. Just because you don't need permission still means you have to cite it. The only thing you don't cite is common knowledge, stuff that everyone knows. Now, there's another thing, fair use. This is the ability to cite sources or use sources without seeking permission from the copyright holder. Fair use allows the use of a copyright work. This is actually a law, so they look at 4 factors to determine if the use is fair or not. The purpose or character of the use is usually where we fit in. It's educational. There's the nature of the copyrighted work, the portion of the work used, and whether or not somebody can make money off of it. Fair use will allow you to quote from a book or journal as long as it's credited, cited. You can reproduce short segments of songs and movies as long as it's credited. You can use an entire work depending on the circumstances. So examples is a professor giving you a copy of an article to read, photocopying selections of materials in the library's reserves. Remember, just because you don't need permission, you still need to cite it. So why do we cite? Well, we cite to thank authors for information, to be courteous to others so they can find the source again. It's actually a common practice in the academic and professional world. It's very similar to how we share links on Facebook and Instant Messenger. So how do you cite things? If you are citing information in your paper, that means you include an in-text citation and the full citation at the end of the paper. Do not list citations in your work cited if you did not cite them in your paper. Misusing sources may result in unintentional plagiarism due to wrongly paraphrasing or paraphrasing without citing, copying, and pasting. You can always ask a librarian, professor, or writing tutor if you're in doubt. Make sure you always credit other people. So here's a cartoon. My professor wants me to meet with him about a paper I turned in. He says, "Why?" "Well, I don't know. I researched and got some articles to support my ideas like she asked." "Eddie, you don't have any citations anywhere? Did you use the information from those articles?" "Yeah, 10, and quotes too." "So?" Well, anytime you use someone else's words or ideas, you have to cite your sources. If you don't, you're plagiarizing and you'll be sent to the dean's office. I'm what? I didn't know. I'd have to meet with the dean too. Our current Vice President Biden was running for president back in 1987, and this issue surfaced. He claimed to not know what he was doing, but at a paper in law school, he copied a very large chunk of text and left only one footnote, and this forever haunted him. He was almost kicked out of law school, but he pleaded with the dean, and they chose to let him receive an F in the course instead of getting kicked out. That was very nice because they never actually made students watch a tutorial like this one. Now we're going to talk about plagiarism. Here's a passage. This is on our search path tutorial. Still, the telephone was only a convenience, permitting Americans to do more casually and with less effort what they had already been doing before. So the student Abby tries to use that sentence, and she says, the telephone was a convenience enabling Americans to do more casually with less effort what they'd already been doing before. Will sound familiar? Well, this is plagiarism in its worst form. Abby does not indicate that the words belong to the author. She leaves her readers to believe that the words are hers, and she has stolen the words and ideas and attempted to cover the theft by changing or omitting an occasional word. O'Brien wrote that Borston argues that the telephone was only a convenience, permitting Americans to do more casually and with less effort what they had already been doing before. Even though he acknowledges a source, this is still plagiarism because he's copied the original almost word for word, and he has not supplied quotation marks to include it, to indicate it. Now Chad here writes, Daniel J. Borston has noted that the Americans considered the telephone as simply a convenience, an instrument that allowed them to do more casually and with less effort what they'd already been doing before. He has done a good job. He has identified a source at the beginning of the paragraph, letting readers know who is being quoted, and has provided a footnote directing them to the exact source of the statement. He has paraphrased some of his words and quoted others, but makes it clear to the reader which words are his and which belong to Borston. Many students forget citations till it's time to turn in their paper. One tip is to write down in your notes every time you write down the citation information every time you take notes. So tips to avoid misuse of sources include using your own ideas, using others to support your ideas, including citation information when taking notes, and using quotes directly. And lastly, we're going to look at the Academic Integrity Code at NJIT. There's a lot of information here. Here they describe that there's 4 general categories based on the degree of seriousness. We scroll down here, we'll see the examples. And plagiarizing in full, written, oral, or graphic work, which has been authored or prepared by another, has a minimum of a XF, a suspension, and a maximum of expulsion. And then it gets lesser and lesser if you just forget to do it, forget to acknowledge someone else. You can see the variety of codes here. I encourage you to look at this. This will also be listed in the Moodle tutorial. And now it's time to take your quiz.